Nou, schiet op. Welcome, 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 lovely sisters and brothers. Thank you so much for being tuned in. Today we are going to go back to this whole idea of the consummation of the age. This time we will approaching this topic from the gnostic perspective, uh, presented to us through the Nag Hammadi texts and in togetherness with how Wes Penry is giving also his view on the things. I'm still reading from The Battles Between Shadow and Light, a interesting book from Wes Penry himself. So let's start and let's see how the Gnostics were understanding this whole idea of consummation of the age. This is also a long chapter, so I will split it up in several parts. It is in actuality almost the last chapter of this book. The last one will be the difference between patriarchy and matriarchy, which will be also quite important to re-understand again what the difference are. The consummation of the age. This is what the Nag Hammadi Gnostic texts say about the consummation of the age. Before the consummation of the age, the whole place will be shaken by great thunder. Then the rulers will lament, crying out on account of their death. The angels will mourn for their human beings, and the demons will weep for their times and seasons, and their people will mourn and cry out on account of their death. Then the age will begin, and they will be disturbed. Their kings will be drunk from the flaming sword and will make war against one another, so that the earth will be drunk from the blood that is poured out, and the seas will be troubled by that war. Then the sun will darken, and the moon will lose its light. The stars of the heaven will disregard their course, and great thunder will come out of great power that is above all the powers of chaos, the place where the firmament of the women is situated, the place where the firmament of the woman is situated. That was the sentence. When she has created the first work, she will take off her wise flame of afterthought and will put on irrational wrath. Then she will drive out the gods of chaos, whom she had created together with the chief creator. She will cast them down to the abyss. They will be wiped out by their own injustice. For they will become like the mountains that blaze out fire, and they will consume one another until they are destroyed by their chief creator. When he destroys them, he will turn against himself and destroy himself until he ceases to be. And their heavens will fall upon one another, and their powers will burn. Their realms will also be overthrown, and the chief creator's heaven will fall and split into two. Likewise, his stars in their sphere will fall down to the earth, and the earth will not be able to support them. They will fall down to the abyss, and the abyss will be overthrown. And now here comes the way as Wes Penry understands this text. The term abyss can have different meanings depending on the context in which the word is being used. When we are talking about earth in general, the abyss is the lowest part of the earth. And sometimes it is the absolute lowest part of the kinoma, which is without spirit. In terms of this particular quote, the abyss means the lowest part of the kinoma, where no spirit exists, save for what is still preserved in the archons and the humans who follow them there. The angels will mourn for their human beings. This means, as I see it, that when Earth will be destroyed, humans will die, be retrieved as 3-unit composites, and return to Orion without the sapiens' bodies. The archons will understand they have lost and are completely and finally doomed. This is why they put their last hope in and will make their last stand by creating the singularity and attack Orion. So, again, what we see play out is also, besides of all the other agendas and scripts that are being played out over this earth, the main head agenda and main script that is being played out on earth for a long while is this script known as the consummation of the age. So what we see indeed is that the darkness represented by the archons, the Khan kings, whom are from the Sirius star system, and the Sirius star system, from what I came to understand years ago, is also in a very deep state. Some sectors of the Sirius star system are in deep state of deterioration also, is that we see that indeed the darkness, the archons, the Khan kings, They are desperate because they see that their time is running out in the kinoma. The kinoma is again the shadow side of the pleroma. And so this is also one of the reasons behind the agenda of depopulation, because they want to decrease the light here on Earth that is uh, also being strengthened by those whom are waking up to all the illusions and lies. And their light that is in them, that is the light of the pleroma that we are carrying in us, that light is shining more and stronger here in this world. So the archons and their creators, the calm kings, um, they do their uttermost best to save their world. How can they do this? By creating the singularity and metaverse that they have created, and by luring the human soul and spirit at the same time into the singularity metaverse, and thus at the same time into the cloud system, and have them there captured and trapped again. So this means the cloud system, the metaverse, and the singularity is our death trap. Another level of the death trap than we are already in. And then they hope eventually that they can confiscate the spirit body of us humans, who is in actuality the avatar. So now you get the understanding of the movie Avatar and what avatar means. And in the movie Avatar, you see the takeover of an spirit body of another being that is being used. So the movie Avatar is in actuality explaining the last point of the plan the Khan Kings, Marduk, and his archons and minions and proxies here on Earth have, and that is riding our avatar slash spirit body to go into Orion universe and to attack Orion universe with our spirit body. And so it seems for Orion that seemingly we are coming back, but as a matter of fact, it is not us that is driving the spirit body, but an archon. Um, so this is also the deeper meaning behind the movie Avatar, in which we see this playing out. So this is how they are telling us the entire script that is eventually to be played out. And in actuality, you can say that the Matrix trilogy movies, as well as the Avatar movie, are indeed speaking about this consummation of the age, or in the Freemason societies, so to say, also known as the great work of the ages, because that is how the archons are calling it. So the consummation of the age is based on Orion's victory over the archons. Then the consummation can start, and so now I am much more confident that Orion will be able to handle the situation than I was not too long ago. It is obvious, though, that we humans do not have all the information. So this is also one of the reasons why I am doing what I'm doing, presenting you this information so that something in you can remember this and can start wake up, and so that you start to remember whom you are. And you are the original life bearer and carrier. Yeah, you are a carrier of the pleroma light. Not that Lucifer prick, because he is the carrier of the false light, because he is part of the kinoma. Um, so we need to wake up to what is in actuality being played out. And this is the main script that is being played out. And underneath this main script, we also see many different um, other scripts that works as layers upon layers upon layers. These scripts are also there to have us distracted and derailed from the actual main script that is being played out. Um, so it is obvious, though, that we humans do not have all the information, and sometimes we need to make qualified guesses based on the information we have and expand on it by connection and by connecting the dots using our creative imagination and intuition, also known as philosophy. This text says that eventually those cast down into the hell dimension, which is also known as the abyss, including some humans, will consume each other until only Yaldabaoth remains, and eventually he will be consumed also by himself. Then, void of energy, he will consume himself out of existence in a last attempt to survive. After that, the entire Kinoma, save for Orion, will be consumed. In my understanding, those humans who followed the Archons down into the pit will eventually dissolve completely, and one of two things could happen to their attached spirit. It could either be retracted and return to the Pleroma and merge with Geradamas Sophia without keeping its individuality, or it returns to the ether and becomes one with the cosmic ocean. Depending, depending on how we look at it, it is the same thing and has the same effect. Either way, I believe they will lose their personality slash individuality. And the humans that are going along with the archons are the minions and proxies, whom we call oligarchs and elites. And also those who refuse to inform themselves and to educate themselves. The particular Gnostic text discussing the consummation of the age ends like this. The light will cover the darkness and obliterate it. It will become like something that never existed, and the source of the darkness will be completely dissolved. The deficiency will be plucked out at its root and thrown down to the darkness, and the light will withdraw up to its root, and the glory of the unconceived will appear, and it will fill all the eternal realms. When the prophetic utterance and the writings of those who are rulers are revealed and are fulfilled by those who are called perfect. Those who were not perfect in the unconceived Father will receive their glories in their realms and in the kingdoms of immortals, but they will not ever enter the kingless realm. So let's ponder upon this text. For it is necessary that everyone enter the place from which he has come. Each one can by his deeds and his gnosis will reveal his nature. And then I continue with what Wes Penry writes about this. Many people versed in the Gnostic texts get upset here, understandably so, unless we uncover the meaning of it. Are there humans who do not have spirit? Or even if they do, they will not be welcome in Orion and the Pleroma? If so, will these humans be excluded from salvation altogether? The answer, as I have concluded, is yes. But who are they? These are the ones from the Cain bloodline. In the Bible, it says only Noah's bloodline survived the flood. Enki put himself as an Orion representative in his narration of the ancient texts. He foremost wanted to save this Cain lineage. What the ancient texts say even contradicts some historical evidence. The Bible says that those of Cain's blood were not allowed into the ark. I would argue that Noah's lineage is the Cain bloodline. That Noah's lineage is the Cain bloodline. This becomes obvious when we think about it. Why do the ancient texts say that Noah was the last of the Enki's pure bloodline? Because he was. The Enki bloodline is that of Cain. So who are they today? Many of them are the global elite or elite, whom Enki and the archons approached after the flood and gave knowledge after having initiated them into the first patriarchal secret society, which is the Brotherhood of the Snake. I would further argue that those who survived the flood, who were not of Noah's blood, were those of the Seth lineage. Still, why can't those of the Cain bloodline go into the Pleroma if they are spirited? To answer this, we need to dig into the 13 Illuminati bloodlines, covered in detail by the American author and researcher Fritz Springmeier and others. The archons have made a great effort to keep the Cain bloodline as pure as possible. It is not just a physical issue, which is irrelevant in the greater scheme of things. A short recap from the beginning parts of this book. Cain and Abel were born after Yaldabaoth had raped Eve, so the brothers had the demiurge's blood/DNA. There was very little life, if any, of Prince Enlil's DNA in them. As the story goes, Cain killed his brother out of envy, jealousy, and rage, feeling rejected by his father. Left was Cain, and his bloodline continued since he had children. But whose spirit did Cain have? Who breathed spirit into Adam? The second Adam, i.e. Cain, the first being Abel. Yaldabaoth did. So Yaldabaoth gave Cain and Abel his spirit. After that, Eve had sex with an Adama behind Yaldabaoth's back, which became the third human, which is the Seth bloodline. comprising archontic DNA in combination with that of Isis and Prince Ninurta. So who breathed fire spirit into Seth? You guessed it, Zoe did. To expand on this, the Seth spirit comes from Zoe, which comes from Pistis, Sophia, and Geradamas. The Seth line is the true royal bloodline everybody is talking about. We are in extension the first human, i.e. the perfect child, comma, the Christ consciousness, comma, the royal child. Then it doesn't matter whether we are all mixed bloodline wise, we are still the royal spirit splinter hosting the human body. However, that is not the case with the archons who minutely monitor Cain's bloodline. The same principle applies to Cain's bloodline as to that of Seth. It is the same spirit inside these bodies reincarnating over and over and over and over again into the same Illuminati bloodlines. These are the spirits of Yaldabaoth, and therefore the archons for sure own them, and they have no choice but to obey the authorities, better known as archons, above them, until one day they will be consumed by their own masters once they have entered the hell dimension. Allowing the Cain spirit into Orion and the Pleroma would be the same as allowing the Archons into these realms. It would contaminate both. Therefore, those of the Cain bloodline will dissolve when the Archons and the humans consume each other, at least those who worked for the Archons and Yaldabaoth, Kan and Lil, consumes himself, comparing it to a starving person eating from his own body to stay alive. When all that is finished, the kinoma will be consumed, save for Orion. The spirit of the archons and humans of the Cain bloodline will most likely dissolve, return to the cosmic ocean, and lose their individuality. We of the Seth bloodline and lineage can always keep our individual spirit alive by retrieving energy from Pistis and Geradamas. Except recently, since that connection has been strangled and we only have the energy preserved in the matrix. I found the following interesting page in Wikipedia. Yaldabaoth's envy eventually will become his own demise. Everything eventually turns back to you. Yeah. So everything that Yaldabaoth has done will backfire again to him. This quote can be related to both the original envy when Yaldabaoth's son Sabaoth gained power in Orion and to the end times respectively. So here another piece of text of the Gnostic Nag Hammadi. The psychics can choose between both Iyalda Baoth representing evil and Sabaoth representing good. Sabaoth becomes the current ruler of the world and thus fulfills the role of the God of Israel. Thrown into Tartarus, Iyaldabaoth envies his son, whereupon his envy takes on shape and becomes death. So let us dive in another subtopic of this chapter called the royal bloodlines. And This is also one of the reasons why I have read so many from the book, The Story of Isis and the War on Bloodlines. So this is more or less a recap. The royal bloodlines. We touched on this in the previous section, but there is more to it. We already discussed that the Seth bloodline, comprising the spirit of Pistis and Geradamas in one, is the what is known as royal bloodline. My contact in Orion also acknowledged we are royal. Also, we discussed, which is important, that the majority of the human population, being of the Seth bloodline, does not need to bother with which body they are born into. All human bodies today are a mixture of so much DNA that it is almost impossible to trace it. It is only the Cain bloodline that is kept relatively pure, although the Cain elite have contaminated the Seth lineage too by having children out of wedlock with so-called commoners. With so-called commoners. That child will be rejected as a bastard and will have no royal or authoritarian rights. He or she is so-called thrown to the wolves. Interesting term. Wolfen-reptilian is also a term for the Syrians, also known as the Archons. Because the Syrians are wolf reptilian-like. They have the face of a wolf and the body of a reptilian, the body strength of a reptilian. We are royal because we are the crown of creation. As the Nag Hammadi texts say, as did my contact in Orion also confirm, and every generation that comes through reproduction is royal as well. Now let us bring this into the shadow realm, the kinoma. How do the archons copy that? Well, some of you might have guessed it. Through monarchy. Kings and queens, comma, the kinoma royalty. So kings and queens are part of the kinoma, I mean. So they are the copy of kings and queens in the pleroma, which is also known as Orion universe. Orion universe, within it, the pleroma. So the kings and queens on earth are copycats and are representing the kinoma. Therefore, my contact in Orion talked about the late Queen Elizabeth II, who thought she was the Earth representative of the Royal Queen of Orion. She was a patriarchal matriarch, truly believing in the divine right to rule over the rest of the population. Well, this is also something this stupendous Pope figure in the Vatican is claiming of himself to be, that he's the representation of so-called God the Father here on earth, and claims that it has all the power to rule over us. In the past, kings and queens had more masculine, outgoing power. These days, it is usually more covert in many monarchies. Officially, the regents are just representatives of their country, like an advertisement to the world. But behind the scenes, they decide everything. The Queen of England owned Great Britain, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and all the other colonies we have read about concerning the old British Empire. The empire, mirroring the Orion Empire, still exists in its original form, save for a few minor changes. Even though some countries are officially sovereign, they are still under British influence. Just look at the Australian and Canadian letter stamps from the 1950s and 60s. They show the profile of the Queen of England. This is also why the French King Louis XIV, who in actuality was a reincarnation of Marduk, had such a difficult time conquering England in the 1600s. England was mighty, and as my contact said, they did not need Marduk, so they threw him out, as my Orion contact put it. Until this day, the British Empire is extremely mighty and unconquered. However, maybe a mighty prince in Saudi Arabia who bought Louis XIV's estate in France, who was also, and I don't know if he is still the owner of a mighty warehouse in England, who was the father of Dodi, the lover of Lady Diana. And they, better said, he was an Arab, came from Saudi Arabia. So this is interesting. Maybe a mighty prince in Saudi Arabia who bought Louis XIV's estate in France for a fantasy price of $300 million. We'll put a final end to that, and I do not mean that it is a good thing. Nothing here is a good thing. ISIS knew that the monarchy is the power of the matrix. It is the Cain bloodline. Therefore, she made a serious effort to dilute it with her and Ninurta's DNA, as detailed in the story of Isis and the war on bloodlines. I think it was successful to some degree, but it wasn't, unfortunately, enough. Still, she put a lot at stake by doing this. It was not a selfish action, but an attempt to bring the human soul group home. We humans needed a, so to say, push to accomplish our part of the mission, and she intervened on our behalf, and she paid the price for it. Again, read my ISIS book. The story of Princess Diana, sad as it is just one of ISIS' lifetimes here on Earth, and most of them, if not all, have been filled with unfathomable trauma. To summarize what we have learned so far, we are royal, and therefore the archons must copy that. So you can now see that we are in actuality living in a copied version of the original universe. We are living and outliving a copy. And this is interesting because if you look at the MasterCard symbol, these are two circles, and then you have this overlapping. This overlapping is in actuality, the realm which is called the astral realm. The astral realm functions as an intermediary between the kinoma and pleroma, and thus between us and the Orion universe. So this is how you can see the symbolism in it. So in actuality, everything is indeed right under our nose, but because they deliberately made sure that we would not know all this information, we do not understand how to read all the symbolism that is around us and right under our nose. So everything is between quotation marks hidden in plain sight. And that is why it is of great importance to do self-informance and self-education. And this is the reason, the main reason, that I present you all this information, because I find it very important that many of my fellows are knowing this information, because I truly and sincerely care about my fellows here on earth. Um, So the archons must copy that, and they did it by creating the archontic Cain between quotation marks royal bloodlines. And this also explains how this Prince Charles was treating Lady Diana, and she spoke about this, and the way he was treating her was very inhumane, and better said, was a very archontic, in an archontic way. I strongly suggest the reader, when they see something happening here in this world, realize it is all a copy and an inversion of what happens above, with very few exceptions. This is why we suffer, we are living in a, here it comes, mirrored, shadowy world, where the intentions of the authorities, better known as archons, are evil, contrary to the spirit realm, where it is benign. Or benign, sorry, where it is benign. However, it is not just the monarchs who are the Cain bloodline. There are researchers who have sweated blood to reveal the bloodlines of presidents, dictators, and other rulers, and where they came from. They have been able to reveal that there is not one single ruler in authority, including those people vote for, who cannot be traced back to the same bloodline all the way back to Babylon. They are Cains. Take Americans as an example. Although it is relevant to all countries that have, between quotation marks, free elections. Americans think they have a choice. Well, better said, all people in this world think that they have a choice, but look around us. Do we have a choice? At the end of the day, we do not have really a choice, because at the end of the day, things are shoved through our throat, if we like it or not. So Americans and many people in this world think they have a choice whether this or that candidate will be the new president, prime minister, dictator, whatever. Hilarious, it is all rigged. People. All these people are rigid. It doesn't matter whom you vote for. And I have also the idea, among those whom are voting are also people who are carriers of the Cain bloodline, uh, not knowing this on a conscious level, and make also sure that certain parties stay continuously in power, and that these people are indeed steered by archontic forces, also not consciously knowing that archons are steering them to vote on a particular person of a party that needs to stay in power. It is just a show to keep us entertained and divided. Long before the election, it is already decided who is going to be the next president. This time, as of this writing, many think it is going to be Donald Trump. Well, I would say it is more likely to go the other way around, but eventually he became president, unfortunately. Um, Also, in the time of the publication of this book, Wes Penry says that he thinks it would more likely going to be this Harris girl, a woman. She is a notorious liar and has an even more terrible backstory than Hillary Clinton. She was also recently called out by Jordan Peterson on the internet, so do research. In actuality, all these people are not trustable in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, they are all working for the agenda of Marduk. So, and Marduk is a full-blown psychopath, so a psychopath is not trustworthy at all. Why being creator gods in Orion? And I am replacing the word gods in creator creators. So why being creator creators in Orion? What is the use of being creator creators in Orion if Orion is going to succumb as well after an extra age or so? Maybe it is just because this is what we do, and this is what we are, creators. Any creation is a contribution to the whole and will be integrated into all other memories and experiences in the cosmic ocean. Then, if new omniverses are created in the future, the experiences from a former omniverse and existence stay embedded as a resource in an upcoming omniverse. As I mentioned earlier, I am not so sure that there are two unit composites in Orion, since it is my impression all beings are born inside spirited stars. Thus the name star beings. If there truly are two unit composites there, they will still gain spirit as a part of their evolution, and when the time comes for the eighth heaven to be consumed, the two unit composites will also die because they are physical, and spirit will be retrieved. Using my logic, the only difference between them and three-unit composites and three-unit composite is soul, mind, spirit, body. Um, is that three-unit composites have a divine mind that was not created in the matrix by Enki and not in Orion by Prince Enlil. It is the divine mind of the first human known as Geradamas. Two-unit composites lack the divine mind, the soul, and any semi-physical body three-unit composites will have at that time will perish, since all that is physical will be consumed. Therefore, the two-unit composites would lose their personality, but spirit would return to the pleroma luminary. or star. Who gave them birth? For they belong to the aeon or sub-aeon between quotation marks. Who gave them? Spirit. And by that, I contradict myself, which is why I stick with my essential logic, which is that star beings are born in stars and therefore they are spirited to begin with. And they will return as three-unit composites to the aeons who gave them life. Hence, we humans are aeons. We humans are aeons. Alternatively, could two-unit composites be born in planets instead? If so, they are not star beings and therefore non-spirited. I doubt that too, because our solar system, which is the kinoma, has planets because they are copies of Orion and Pleroma luminaries or stars. In the Pleroma, planets are, between quotation marks, dead stars that were never ignited by spirit because there was no spirit in the kinoma after Pistis Sophia created it. We could say our solar system is a complete copy, mirror, shadow of a star constellation in Orion, where the planets of the Kinoma solar system are roughly like stars to the archons, and the moons are planets orbiting the, in quotation marks, star. These planets are hollowed out and populated by many archons, and archons with a small a. So archons capital A and archons non-capital A. So with capital A are their chiefs, and the smaller a is just the archons, the group. Because of Tiamat, I believe there are planets in Orion too, but they are used for other purposes than inhabitation. My contact in Orion said planets are used for storage and for other reasons. What about the MiG-Mach Defense Force? We know there were Syrians / archons who joined the force after the peace agreement. Aren't they allowed into Orion? If they are, then the Gnostic texts are incorrect in that they tell us Sabaoth is the only archon in Orion. I do not think the Gnostic texts are incorrect in that. I haven't heard or read anything that shows that these former Dak warriors have left the Mik-Mach. This doesn't mean they are welcome in Orion. Their job is to defend the so-called gates of Orion against their own people, the Khan kings of the Kinoma. They never need to enter Orion. Prince Enlil, as Sabaoth, being accustomed to the Orion environment, cannot easily descend into the Kinoma and Earth, so he splits himself into Archangel Michael, who operates in the Kinoma as the commander of the Mik-Mach, a splinter who can more comfortably move around in the Kinoma together with the loyal Syrian Orion army. Then, if Michael wants to enter Earth, he splits again and becomes Ninurta. Thus, the four Sabaoth, Prince Enlil, Archangel Michael, and Ninurta are one and the same being, all splinters from this same being. So it's one being splintered up in several, you can say, manifestations. One known as Ninurta, one known as Archangel Michael, one known as Prince Enlil. Maybe maybe things make a little more sense now. Keeping the West Penry papers in mind, where I broke down many titles of the Khan kings, showing the reader many of them were the same being with different titles. So what we need to understand as humans in this copied universe is that names are not as we understand names are. Names can also be titles or referring to specific attributes. And then, yeah, execution of prophecy and fulfillment of destiny. This is the last sub chapter in and of this chapter that I go through. Although Nag Hammadi's on the origin of the world quite thoroughly describes the execution of the consummation of the age, it is not the only text discussing the subject. I think it is important to include other texts here as well, so we can hear it described from different perspectives, and we noticed that they complement each other. So here, a piece of text from another ancient text, titled Adamas and the Tyrants Fight Against the Light. Many beautiful humans here are saying that everything we see is a battle between light and dark. Well, that is indeed correct. It came to pass then, when all those who are in the 12 aeons saw the great light which was about me, that they were all thrown into agitation, one over against the other, and ran hither and thither in the aeons between brackets planets. And all aeons and all heavens and their whole ordering were agitated one over against the other on account of the great fear which was on them. For they knew not the mystery which had taken place. And Adamas, the great tyrant, and all the tyrants in all the aeons began to fight in vain against the light, and they knew not against whom they fought, because they saw nothing but the overmastering light. It came to pass then, when they fought against the light, that they were weakened all together, one with another, were dashed down in the aeons, and became as the inhabitants of the earth. And then another ancient text, he taketh from them a third of their power. And I took from all a third of their power, that they should no more be active in their evil doings, and that if the men who are in the world invoke them in their mysteries, dash, those which the angels who transgressed have brought down, that is, their sorceries, dash, in order that therefore, if they invoke them in their evil doings, they may not be able to accomplish them. And then another piece of ancient text titled, He changeth the motion of their spheres. And this is something that we discussed earlier, and this is in actuality coming from Marduk's mouth. And the fate and the sphere over which they rule I have changed, and I, which is Marduk, have changed and brought it to pass that they spend 6 months turned to the left and accomplish their influences, and that 6 months they face to the right and accomplish their influences. For by command of the first commandment, and by command of the first mystery, ye, the overseer of the light, had set them facing the left at every time, and accomplishing their influences and their deeds. So, the aeons mentioned in the first paragraph are the celestial bodies in orbit, strengthening my conclusion that the planetary bodies are copies of the aeons in the pleroma. The heavens and spheres are the spaces between the, in quotation marks, ripples, i.e., the orbits of the heavenly bodies. In this text, the Adamas are not the humans, but Marduk in his role as Sabaoth slash Ninurta. Sabaoth, the Adamas, so a new Gnostic text here. This is the primary representative of evil or wickedness in the majority of the Pistis Sophia. He is accused of inappropriate sexual conduct, begetting archons and other beings. And as a result, he is imprisoned in the bounds of the zodiac or the material universe. In the end times, Yaldabaoth, Adamas, Marduk, better known as Marduk, and the rest of the archons with capital A, and the other archons with non-capital A, fight against the light coming down from Orion and the pleroma. They are blinded by it and fight in vain because they cannot see whom they are fighting. So they will be weakened and knocked down in the aeons, fatigued and deprived. Because this text is called Pistis Sophia, the narrator is supposedly Pistis, most likely via Zoe. Zoe Sophia. Whether it is actually her, I do not know. She talks in the past tense as if it was already done, which I find interesting. There is no linear time where she comes from. So according to this text, Sophia takes away a third of the archon's power. Moreover, she tilts the planets' orbits to tip them out of balance. You, Y-E-U, is Yehovah or Yahweh, also known as Yaldabaoth. The left is also the left path. as the occultists call it, which is the path the archons, better known as the fallen angels, educated mankind in when they descended and taught sorcery to us in the beginning, or the matrix, a path the archons themselves took since their beginning. So we need to go the right path. Then, so to say, the reader may recognize the following as the left path. For when the seven rulers were cast from their heavens down upon the earth, they created for themselves so-called angels, many demonic angels, to serve them. But these demons taught humankind many, many, many errors, with magic and potions and idolatry and shedding of blood and altars and temples and sacrifices and uh, libations to all the demons of the earth, which are archons, having as their co-worker fate, who came into being according to the agreement by the gods of injustice and justice. So, better said, for whom are we in actuality working for, and to whom are we giving our power and life force and soul energies away and into their hands? These are the archons. We are working for the archons slash Syrians slash Khans. And if we now know that the top echelon of this so-called world is ruled by Cain bloodline and thus by archons, then we are working for archons. And I think it is about time that we as humans let this information sink in, that you are working and having a job to sustain archons, to make sure that they still are being alive and around us. So we in togetherness are keeping these beings alive by our labor that we do, by giving our soul energy to them, and also a piece of our spirit to them, because as we have come to know earlier, um, those of us whom had to deal with narcissists in their life, most narcissists are non-player characters set on the person's path to gain a bit of the person's spirit, so that when this non-player character dies off, this piece of spirit that in actuality belongs to you then will be given to the archons, and the archons integrate this spirit in themselves. We need to understand what we are in and the world we are in, and that the world we are in is not what we think it is. Every single thing is an illusion, is in actuality a deception, is a mirror, is a copy, is a shadow from the original world from whence we came. And with these words said, yeah, I leave it here, and the next time, that is part two, we will go through the subtopics titled as the word of the first human, the final judgment, human destiny, and then a final summary. So I keep it like this, and I think it's of great importance that we start to realize deeply what we are doing and whom we are in actuality supporting. And I think this is also one of the reasons why we um, are seeing more and more people trying to find a way to leave this suppressive and oppressive system. Many are trying to escape through building tiny houses, living so-called off-grid. Off-grid living does not exist. That's a lie. It's an illusion people keep themselves in. Um, Everything is based on a grid, so you cannot live off-grid. But there are many, many people who are figuring out to not to participate any longer in this brutal, cruel, uh, horrific system construct that we call matrix, to escape this. And I think the more people are doing this, the more people are helping in actuality to weaken this system and to make holes in this system and to weaken the archontic force. And so I would suggest that we all start to think about all this and start to think that what is more relevant, living a fake life with fake luxury, um, with stuffed with materialistic goods. Yeah, what is more important? And so many people whom are trying to retract from this system, they say that since they have made that step, they in actuality feel more free. And yes, it is not always a rosy colored life that they live, um, but at least they can now stop participating in many, many of the archontic agendas. And I think that we all need to do this. Stop participating in all these archontic agendas, and also um, the first step in all this is acknowledging that everything we see is in actuality part of a script. All the chaos, wars, and things that are happening are all part of a script, and that social media is also being used as a tool to make sure that the frequency fence stays in check, because social media is in actuality producing a lot of fear-based um, fear-based news and topics and other things that are in actuality very much fear-based. Many people do not realize that a lot of what social media is presenting is not real, is carefully crafted. So the social media platforms, I think just less than 5% is worth um, searching for, and the rest is in actuality junk. There are many, many channels on social platforms where you see huge amounts of followers, but they don't have the content that explains the huge amount of followers. So these channels are not real. These channels are fake channels and are set up to trap people into these channels. The channels with the least amount of followers are in most cases channels that indeed are spreading information that is worth hearing. And so we need to be more discernful in what we watch, what we follow, whom we watch, to whom we listen to, what we read, and so on, so on. So, with this said, I close off, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in through Facebook, through Rumble, through YouTube, and through the mobile platforms of these channels. Thank you so much for taking your time to tune in, to listen along, and to learn along with me. Uh, Please spread these videos amongst many of your fellows so that we can help each other to um, activate this remembrance in each one of us that we are 12 stranded human beings, whom are the crown of creation. We are the true and original light bearers in this world and no one else. So thank you so much. I wish you all a beautiful day filled with a lot of joy, goodness, wisdom, and revelations, all coming from your own spirit. And let us listen to a beautiful piece of music titled Love and created by Ben Sound. See you next time, and thank you so much.